What's up, everybody? Welcome to church today. We are so glad that you are here today. My name is Brad. I'm our next gen pastor here at The Journey, also our Newark location pastor. And man, I'm just so honored that I get a chance to be up here the second weekend of the year, sharing a thought that I feel like God's given me over the last few weeks, and just honored that I get to be a part of it. And before we go any further, I want to welcome anybody who is gathering online right now. Newark, help me give it up for them. Gathering online, we love you so much. Glad that you are along for the ride today. It's going to be a great day. I'm also thankful for our pastor, Pastor Mark, man, does such a great job of leading our church with vision, helping us all move forward towards the direction of God's best for us. So will you help me show some love for Pastor Mark as well while you're here today? Yeah. He came to me a couple of weeks ago and he said, Brad, I'd love for you to teach that second weekend in January. And I said, man, I'd love to, but I guess I gotta bring my A game if it's the second weekend of the year. And I'm hoping that this word from God is going to be helpful for you, regardless of where you are in your spiritual walk or relationship with God, whatever that looks like for you. And over the last couple of weeks, we've started a series called The End Times, and we're trying to figure out what does the end of the world look like, or maybe painting a picture that Jesus has of what the end of the world could look like and how we're ready for it when it comes. And each one of these messages builds off of the next one. So I really want to encourage you to come back next weekend for the next message and be a part of this whole series, because I think it's going to help you. And Jesus said that there would be an end to the world, and at that point, heaven and hell would be reality for all of us. And so how do we get ready for that? What do we do in the meantime? Because as I look back on this week especially, man, it just feels like we're living in the end of the world, doesn't it? Like I couldn't even believe my eyes whenever I was watching some of the videos of things that happened this week. And so it left me with a question. What would I do if today was my last day on earth? Like, what would I do if I knew that today was my last day? How would I be ready for that? What would I do? And those are some of the questions that we're going to answer together today. I love disaster movies. Anybody else like disaster movies? Like, they do not even have to be good for me to like them. I love disaster movies. Sharknado, maybe that's a little too far, but I love like Armageddon. Let's go. Independence Day. San Andreas with The Rock. I mean, come on, they're disaster movies. I love them to no end. I always find myself the day after I watch a disaster movie imagining that I'm the main character. Like, yeah, I totally would volunteer to go on the NASA space shuttle up to an asteroid, drill down into it, and blow it up and save all of mankind. Like, that's just what I would do. Fellas, anybody else with me here? Like, I feel like I would love to be in a disaster movie. Now, the only knock that I have against disaster movies is that they are totally predictable and totally unrealistic. In fact, I've always thought that disaster movies have like four main components to it. Number one, there's the setup, the like telling the story behind the story, like the parents who are divorced and fighting over the kid or something like that. That there's the setup to the characters. Then there's the big event happens. You know, the volcano erupts under the streets of LA and you're like, let's go. Or you see The Rock like hanging on one hand on a helicopter and the other one reaching down to grab his wife off of a building that's collapsing under an earthquake. It's the big event that happens. Then you get to the climax of the movie where someone either almost dies or actually does die in the movie. And then you hit the end of the movie where everything kind of comes to a resolution. There's like a life lesson that gets learned, or somebody says, man, I should have been doing that all along, or everything kind of gets a nice, neat little bow tied on it at the end of the movie. And I think many of us are living our lives like they are disaster movies. Living them like they're disaster movies. And no, I don't think that aliens are targeting Wilmington as a potential landing site. Like, I'm not worried about any of that. But I do think we're living our lives hoping that things will all kind of come together neatly at the end. Just kind of magically come together in the midst of everything that's going on in our world right now, in midst of all the fighting that's happening and bullets that are getting fired electronically on social media and things that are going on between friends and foes and how that works. And I think many of us are just living our lives one day at a time, just trying to get by. just trying to get by because we're trying to make it out better than our coworker, our neighbor, our friend, or our in-laws, or whoever it is, hoping that our life will just kind of magically come together. And it's all at the expense of us missing out on what life is really about. And that's what Jesus talked about when he referenced the end of the world. He wasn't trying to create a script of a really good disaster movie. No, he was trying to show us, here's what really matters in life. He's trying to get our attention saying, this is what matters most, a growing, thriving relationship with God. And maybe you're listening today and you're saying, hey, I'm not sure that I would consider that to be the most important thing in my life right now, a relationship with God. And that's okay, permission not to buy everything that I'm about to say over the next few minutes, but I'll bet you will find yourself going, yeah, I can relate to that. I wish my life would be better. Or I wish that might be helpful for me in my life. I want it to be different. And so for today, we're going to look at a story that Jesus told that gives us some insight into what the end of the world will look like and what we should do in the meantime. And so here's the story that Jesus tells. He says, then the kingdom of heaven, meaning when the end of the world comes and Jesus comes back to earth, it'll be like 10 bridesmaids who took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. The 5 who were foolish didn't take enough olive oil for their lamps, but the other 5 were wise enough to take along extra oil. So let's put this story in 21st century terms, okay? Because that's the only way that I can think about it is there's this big wedding that's happening and a lot of people are invited, but especially they've got 10 bridesmaids. Like this bride has a ton of followers on Instagram, everybody. Like she has a ton of friends and she's got them all lined up beside her and they're waiting for the bride and groom to come back, hit the reception. They're gonna party hard and have a grand time and they're waiting for all of that to happen. But the reception is happening late at night, and in their particular culture, there wasn't any fancy uplighting or disco balls or anything like that. No, everybody had to bring a lamp that ran off of oil, and they had to bring it with them to light the reception, to light the party. And so these 10 bridesmaids show up. They all have lamps. They all have oil in their lamps, but 5 of them are wise. They brought along some extra oil, and 5 of them are not. They're foolish. They didn't bring anything. They didn't have like anything just in case. Have you ever been somewhere and run out of something that you know you should have had because you should have packed it? Anybody else? Like I run out of something, like you went on vacation, like, man, I just forgot that. My wife and I, a couple of years ago, we went someplace tropical for a vacation and we didn't pack enough sunscreen, which is like the number one thing on every travel blog, isn't it? Like pack enough sunscreen to go. And so my wife and I, we have to roll up to this store to buy more sunscreen. And I remember walking up on this vacation and I grabbed this itty bitty little bottle of sunscreen and I walk up to the counter like, hey, all right, how much is this? And they say $12. And I about lost my mind. Because up until last night, I didn't realize that $12 wasn't that expensive for sunscreen. I was losing my mind because I have the spiritual gift. It's called being frugal. And some people call it being cheap. I call it being frugal. I'm pretty sure that's what the Bible says. Like, I couldn't believe I just spent $12 on a bottle of sunscreen. And I remembered the moment we were packing. I remember the moment where we're looking at it going, that should be enough. Yeah, that's plenty. We're good. We won't need any. Nope, day 2, we're buying sunscreen because we need more. And it just always like frustrated me in that moment. I think oftentimes that just in case mindset can come in really clutch for us. That just in case mindset can come in handy. Like if we know there's gonna be traffic, we'll leave 5 minutes early just in case. Or we'll pack an extra outfit for the baby just in case there's an explosion on the way over, if you know what I mean. Like we'll make sure to go up and compliment our mom before asking to go out with friends just in case she's in a bad mood. Just in case mindsets can come in clutch, but I wonder how many of us have a just in case mindset whenever it comes to our relationship with God. I wonder how many of us are just thinking that God's our just in case backup plan, like he's an afterthought, or that he's there when we need him to, but we're gonna kind of make our own plans in our life and we're gonna move forward with whatever we think is best, and then God's kind of the backup plan. He's the thing that's off to the side just in case. And that's what Jesus is describing here in this story. He's talking about 5 bridesmaids who brought along extra oil just in case, and 5 who didn't. And oil in this story, throughout the entire Bible has a very rich symbol, a very rich meaning and metaphor to it. Oil was valuable, it was important, it was needed. In fact, kings were anointed with oil, meaning they would pour oil on the king's head and let it fall down over him to symbolically show that he was in charge. He was the leader now. It was like a coronation ceremony for kings. So oil was valuable. And in this story, oil represents a growing and thriving relationship with God. That's what this oil represents. And so as we look at the story that Jesus is telling, 5 people are wise. They brought along some extra oil. They've spent time with God. They've brought that relationship with God with them into the next season of their life. And the 5 that were foolish had not. They didn't have any left once it ran out. And here's what happens next. When the bridegroom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. I hate delays. Hate delays. Ever since I graduated high school, and 2-hour snow delays are no longer a thing when you're an adult, I do not like to be delayed. I don't like to be held up. I'm a man on a mission. Like, let's go where we need to go. That's where we're headed. But I think we would all agree we can deal with some simple delays. Like, yeah, they're annoying, but we can deal with them. We get over them pretty easily. Like a delayed flight, or you're running late to a meeting, or you forget something at home and you have to turn around and go back and get it and you get to the office late, or whatever that looks like for you. Some of those simple delays just aren't that big of a deal. They're a little annoying, but okay. But then I think there's some significant delays that happen in our lives. Some significant ways where life gets in the way, where a job loss leads to a financial setback that sets us back a few months, or our parents get separated and it takes several months to figure out what the new rhythms and routines are to life nowadays, or a relationship might fall apart, or a course that you flunked that now causes the graduation date to get pushed out again. Delays are frustrating. And it happens to all of us. I mean, delays are a part of life. It is the way that the world is. And notice that the bridegroom gets delayed and it affects all of the bridesmaids. They all became drowsy and fell asleep. And the preparation of the 5 wise bridesmaids didn't matter whether or not they got delayed. In fact, let me tell you, some of you have been preparing. You've brought some oil. You've got your relationship with God, but you're still delayed. Like, delays don't pick and choose between somebody who has a relationship with God and somebody who doesn't. In fact, sometimes God is the one to cause the delays because he recognizes that in the season between what you want and it actually happening, you can grow in the middle of it. And so there's a part of that where delays can be a part of God's plan, but oftentimes our delays lead to distraction. Our delays lead to distraction. Look at the bridesmaids. They all showed up for the reception. They all wanted to party. They all got invited, but then they got distracted. They fell asleep. They couldn't control that the bridegroom didn't show up on time, but they didn't have something that they were prepared for. In the time between what they wanted and what they prayed for and what they prepared for and it actually arriving in their life, they got distracted. And I think this affects all of us. Delays happen all the time. We are all waiting for something. We're all waiting for something in the world to be different. We're waiting for the moment when we can go out in public and not have fear of a virus. We're waiting for political corruption to not be something that makes the headline news every single night. We're waiting for a moment when equality is reality for every person, regardless of their appearance. We're all waiting for something and delayed by something. But Journey, let me ask you this. Have you gotten distracted while you got delayed? Has something distracted you in the midst of your delay? In the time between what you hoped for and prayed for and are expecting to take place in your life and it actually coming to reality, have you lost sight of it? Have you gotten distracted? Have you given up on your dreams? Have you stopped chasing that thing that you've always wanted? Have you gotten more focused on money than you should have? Have you been scrolling too much social media because you recognize that other people have what you really want and that's what is an outlet for you to make you feel happy? Like, when you've gotten distracted, is it because of the delay? When your expectation wasn't met in the time frame that you wanted it to be, what was your response? Did you push through? Did you grab that extra oil, that relationship with God, and push through it? Or did you back off and give up and allow the distraction to take over? I think for the bridesmaids, they were there. They didn't go home. They didn't give up. They just got distracted. They fell asleep. They were present where they needed to be, but they weren't focused for what they needed to be focused on. They were distracted in that moment. And so I think like this year, it can be different. 2021 can be a different year for us. We can move forward into what God has for us, that if Jesus comes back and it's the end of the world, we don't have to wait for delays or distractions to pull us away from a relationship with God. No, Jesus paints a story of what should happen next and how we take the next step. But here's what happens unexpectedly for the bridesmaids. Jesus says that at midnight, they were roused by the shout. Look, the bridegroom is coming. Come out and meet him. Hey, everybody, get up. Come on, it's time to party. It's wedding reception time. Grab your lamps. Here we go. And all the bridesmaids got up and prepared their lamps. Then the 5 foolish ones asked the others, please give us some of your oil because our lamps are going out. But the others replied, we don't have enough for all of us. Go to a shop and buy some for yourselves. Which, can we just agree this is a little cold-hearted? Like, what are you talking? Didn't Jesus say, like, love your neighbor and stuff? Like, that's kind of what I expected Jesus to say in this story. I kind of expected him to be like, you know what, the 5 wise, they shared, they were generous, they decided to give their relationship, that's how they got closer. But Jesus says, no, the 5 went, you go get your own oil. Figure it out for yourself kind of thing, which can seem cruel on the surface. It can seem cruel to us that the 5 bridesmaids who had extra oil wouldn't just be generous and give more to the other person, but it's not actually cruel. They just knew in advance that they had to be ready. The 5 wise bridesmaids were prepared. They knew what came next. They knew they had to find their own oil. They couldn't expect that somebody else was going to come through for them. They couldn't ride the coattails of someone else's successes. They had to be ready for themselves. And I think the same thing is true for our own relationships with God, that we can't ride off of someone else's relationship with God. We have to have our own. We have to have our own oil and our own relationship with God. Your wife or your girlfriends or your parents' relationship with God isn't enough to carry you through, because there's gonna be a point where you need to go find your own oil. You need to go find your own relationship with God. And I know that it's not easy to do that, especially if you're new to your faith. If you're still trying to figure out what it means to follow Jesus and you've put your faith in him recently, I get it. It's not easy and it takes effort. And that's why we've created environments as a church like 21 Days of Prayer and Fasting that you heard about a moment ago. Because every morning at 7 a.m., we're creating an environment where you can come access the presence of God. You can really experience God for yourself, and you can find your own oil. You can get your jar refilled. In fact, you can get around some people whose oil is already full and just kind of park your jar next to theirs, hoping that it overflows into your life as well. It's a time where you can connect with God and you can be intentional and take next steps towards what it means to follow Jesus fully, regardless of what life decides to throw at you. You see, when life throws a delay your way, you can't control it, but what you can control is whether or not you're prepared to avoid the distraction. And you can step forward. You can step into the blessing that God has through a relationship with him. And so through that, watch what happens to the bridesmaids next. But while they were gone to buy the oil, while they were out getting prepared, the bridegroom came. Then those who were ready, the 5 wise ones, went in with him to the marriage feast, and the door was locked. Later, when the other 5 bridesmaids returned, they stood outside calling, "Lord, Lord, open the door for us." But he called back, "Believe me, I don't know you." Now, if you're not sure exactly what you believe about God, you can take a pass on this. You can kind of lean back if you want to. But This story is so rich in meaning that these bridesmaids had gone away. They went to get their own oil and they come back. They're expecting at this point. Now they're prepared. Now they're ready. Now they're excited about a relationship with God. They've got their own oil and they start knocking on the door. Hey, I want in. And Jesus' response is, I don't know you. It's pretty heavy. When my wife and I were engaged, there was one thing that caused more arguments than anything else. Wedding planning. Can I get an amen from some fellas? Okay, wedding planning had us all kinds of fighting all the time. Maybe not all the time. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating it just a little bit. But I did not enjoy the process of wedding planning because I do not have a strong opinion about what our wedding should have looked like. Guys can also relate to this. In the moments when my wife would ask me, honey, what color napkins should we have? I don't know. Honey, should the DJ go here or here? I don't know. Do you like this font on this invitation or this font on this invitation? Which do you like better? That's the safe answer, fellas. That's the safe answer. Which one do you like better? And I thought I was being, a good fiance. Like I thought I was winning in that moment. Because I know what the alternative was. And men, you know what the alternative was too. God bless my wife, she's amazing. But you know what the alternative was. Well, I guess what about that one? Let's just pick that one. Oh, okay. If you like that one, we can do that one. Well, hon, I really don't have like that big of a preference. So if you like this one, let's go with this one. No, it's fine. We'll go with that one. No, I don't think you're understanding me. I really don't have a preference. So if you like this one, no, it's fine. It's fine. We can do, is this ringing a bell for anybody? Or am I just this is like a flashback right now. The wedding planning was the worst. In fact, the worst part of wedding planning was trying to figure out our guest list. Trying to figure out who's gonna get invited and who's not, and who are you gonna leave off the guest list and probably annoy, or mom's getting a phone call later today, like why didn't I get invited to the wedding or whatever. And my wife and I, we only had about 100 people that were invited to our wedding, and I have a very large family. So we went through the process of, are we going to invite great Aunt Mildred to come to the wedding, or are we not going to? Or are we giving a +1 to my best man who has a girlfriend who we actually don't really like, but I guess we have to because he's the best man? We went through this process. In fact, there was this moment, I'm sitting at our table eating dinner that night, and I'm looking out at all of our friends and all of our family, and man, this is like my favorite day of my entire life. Everybody's here to celebrate us and support us, and then I'm just glancing around, I go, who's that guy? Who is he? I don't know you. What are you doing here? I just had this moment of I don't know who you are. Why are you at my wedding right now? And what's going on? I don't know what to do. I don't know you. And what Jesus says is there's going to come a moment where there are people trying to get into the party, where there are people trying to arrive at the celebration, where there are people at the end of the world trying to have a relationship with God. And Jesus' response is, I don't know you. I've never met you. Which can seem like a really intense response from Jesus. Let's all be honest, that's really intense, Jesus. But it's only intense if the I don't know you wasn't preceded by a million I want to get to know yous before that moment. And a million times over again, Jesus is saying, right here in this moment, I want to get to know you. I want a relationship with you. So that the moment that Jesus comes back and you are trying to pound at the door, hoping for a sliver of cake, you can say, Jesus, hey, let me in. If you don't have a relationship with Jesus, Jesus is going to say, hey, I don't know you. We've never talked before. We've never met. We've never had a relationship. I don't know what to do next. And again, it seems like an intense thing for Jesus to say, but remember, the foolish bridesmaids, they weren't prepared. They hadn't spent their life getting oil. They hadn't spent their life getting a rich relationship with God. They hadn't gone out and found their own time with God. Oil wasn't in their priorities. It wasn't in their calendar. It wasn't in their finances. It wasn't in their to-do list. It wasn't in anything. A relationship with God was the last thing on their mind, and it was an afterthought. It was a just in case. What if the life that you have always wanted is directly and deeply connected to how much of a relationship you have with God right now? What if the life that you have always hoped would be successful, the life that you've always wanted to be the case, is directly connected to how close you are with God right now? That if you have a relationship with God, the world could end 5 minutes from now and it wouldn't make a difference because you are secure in your relationship with God. You're completely dependent on Him, and you don't have to worry about anything anymore. God's at the center of your life. So my question for you is He? Is He at the center of your life? Or is He an afterthought, like just in case? I thought about it this way, that your preparation determines your celebration. Your preparation determines your celebration, your preparation, the way that you strive and get close to God, whatever that looks like. Again, not in the things that you do, not in good deeds, not in like being a perfect person or having it all figured out. That's not what it looks like. Having a relationship with God is simply admitting I can't do life on my own and I need a relationship with God. I need God to be a part of my life. It's a decision, not even an action. And when you prepare by making that decision over and over and over again in any area of your life, when you prepare that way, it doesn't matter what life throws at you. It doesn't matter what comes your way because you have turned your life over to God. And guess what? We've all been invited to a party like that. We've all been invited to celebrate with Jesus one day in heaven. Every single one of us has been invited. No, you don't have to come from a certain background, have grown up in church, be Catholic or not Catholic. It doesn't matter. Every single one of us has been invited to a relationship with God. We're all invited to the party. And if life tries to delay us, if life tries to get in our way, well, then we go back to, did we find our own oil? Did we have a relationship with God? Because then we can endure through because our future is secure in heaven. And that's what we can stay focused on. That's why we exist as a church. It's why we exist as a church, because we want everybody to know they're invited. We want everybody to know that there's a party being thrown in heaven, and it starts with a relationship with God, and you're invited. Your neighbors are invited. Your coworkers, your teachers, your parents, whoever it is, they're invited. It's why we're building out our online experience so that people can gather, connect, and serve, and really know that more invitations can go out to people in a way that we've never been able to do or never tapped into before. It's why we give and are generous as a church, because we're gonna buy some food and party decorations for people who don't even know they're invited yet. It's why we serve as a church, because we're gonna decide that we're not just gonna let people experience God through worship and teaching on a stage. No, they're gonna experience God whenever they experience us using our gifts to serve them and make a difference in their lives. That's why we exist as a church. You are invited. But are you ready for what comes next? Jesus ends the story and he says this. He says, so you too must keep watch, for you do not know the day or the hour of my return. You don't know when I'm coming back. You don't know what happens next. So let me ask you the same question that I asked you at the beginning of the gathering today. If Jesus came back in 5 minutes, would you be ready? Would you be ready? Do you have your oil? Are you prepared? Let me just tell you something, church, that I've been wrestling with all week. I think too often we, myself included, spend our time trying to predict when things will go right instead of just preparing for them to go right in the first place. We spend time trying to predict and figure out how things are gonna work together instead of just preparing, making conscious decision day after day. God, you're in charge of my life. So we spend all this time like, if I work hard, I'll get into the right college. If I make that decision, I'll get promoted. If I ask her to marry me, she'll say yes and we'll stay married forever. We're gonna try for 3 months and then she's gonna get pregnant. It's gonna all work out. That relationship, that worry, I'm gonna take care of myself. I won't ever get sick. And then something comes along and it's like a right hook that takes us by surprise because we were busy predicting instead of preparing. And Jesus said that you won't be able to tell when I come back. You won't be able to tell when things will get better. You won't be able to tell when all of your hurt goes away. But if you spend all of your time predicting, you're gonna miss out on your opportunity to prepare for it. So let me just say this, okay? Because I don't know how long you're gonna have to prepare. I don't know when things will end for you. I don't know when your depression's gonna end. I don't know when your loneliness goes away. I don't know when the custody battle is going to stop. I don't know when you're gonna stop being bitter and angry at other people. I don't know when your dad and your brother are gonna talk to each other again. I don't know whenever you're gonna not have the desire to pick up the bottle anymore. I don't know any of that stuff. But church, what I do know is that there's a God that'll move mountains to have a relationship with you. There's a God that'll move everything because he just wants to have a relationship with you. He just wants you to be prepared so that the moment when he comes back, he can say, well done, my good and faithful servant. I'm here for you. Welcome into the gates of heaven. Let's celebrate. That's what God wants to do in your life. He wants to celebrate with you, and you get a choice. Whenever we put our faith in Jesus, we either celebrate with him this side of heaven or that side of heaven. It doesn't matter. And ultimately what happens on this side of heaven pales in comparison to the fact that we get to spend eternity with him. And I want that for you. I want us to be prepared together. I don't know when Jesus is going to return, but here's what I do know. I know that your preparation determines your celebration. I know that a celebration is coming for you. I know that there is something on the other side of your fear. I know that there's something on the other side of your mental health struggle. I know that there's something on the other side of your addiction. I know that there's something on the other side of it because I've seen it play out in my life, and I've seen Jesus take a hold of my life and change it for the rest of it, and I don't have to worry anymore. And I want that for you. I want you to be prepared. I want your life to be different. But church, don't do it because of me. Do it because of what God's doing in your heart right now. Your preparation determines your celebration. And you're invited. If you needed that today, if you just need a shot in the arm, if you're like, come on, I need some help preparing, would you just raise your hand right now? I want to encourage you wherever you are, if you're online, in person, I want to pray for you right now. Go ahead and put your hands down. Father, we're so thankful for you. You're a good God. You're an amazing God. You are worthy of our praise and our worship. And thank you for the invitation. For those of us that have put our faith in you, God, thank you so much that it does not matter what happens this side of heaven, God, you have secured a spot for us. Your word tells us that there's a mansion prepared for us in heaven. And even when this world feels like we're living in a shed, I pray that you would help us have the perspective of being prepared. God, for all of us who are new to our faith and trying to take steps forward and trying to trust you in ways that we never have, God, I pray that you would give them endurance. I pray that you'd shift the focus from predicting to preparing. I pray that every decision wouldn't be about the good works that we do or the decisions that we make. No, that it would be about pressing in closer and closer to a relationship with you. We're believing you for it by faith in Jesus' name. Amen. I think some of you here today have been spending a lot of your life predicting. A lot of your life trying to orchestrate everything, make it all fit together nice and neat. Been hoping that you kick your addiction on your own, that you could get the promotion on your own, that you could have kids on your own, that you could raise those kids on your own. And life isn't a celebration right now. In In fact, it's pretty tough. And I want to tell you that the celebration starts the moment you prepare. The moment you go grab your own oil. The moment you say, I need a relationship with God. The moment you open your life up to him, the celebration begins. And I want to invite you to have that moment right here, right now. So I'd love to invite everybody, go ahead and close your eyes for a moment. Let's just experience God here, because this is somebody's moment who's gonna put their faith in Jesus for the first time today, for real. If that's you, I want you to pray with me. The Bible says that if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord, that you'll be saved. And this is your moment. So you can pray with me, use my words if you want to, pray your own prayer, but pray it with faith. Jesus, I believe in you. I'm trusting you with my life. I turn from my old ways of thinking and my old ways of behaving, and I'm living my life for you. Forgive me of the mistakes I've made. And Jesus, make me right with God. And while everyone is still focused on God right now, if that's you, if you just prayed that prayer for the first time for real, if you're in the room here at Newark, would you raise your hand? Would you be bold and say that you're putting your faith in Jesus? I see you. That's amazing. Online, let me see you. Let's put those in the comments, right? Faith. Just type the word faith in the comments. We want to celebrate with you. We want to come alongside of you. It's the best decision you'll ever make in your life. And then Journey, come on, we got to celebrate. We got to celebrate like heaven's celebrating. Come on, we got to celebrate like heaven's celebrating right now.